Welcome to Module 6, everyone. So, an exciting module here for you, a lot of great things to dig into. Want to get started here with our module objectives. The first one here is a really important one. I think most of you are probably aware State of Ohio just released recently, within the last year, new social emotional standards. And what I thought was very interesting about digging into this topic a bit more is realizing that those standards also can be overlaid with adults as well. And although they are intended for students, when you start thinking about social emotional learning, and especially those of you that are going to be working with adults, that is something that is incredibly powerful to understand and to really facilitate in a school district. So we're really going to unpack this issue of social emotional learning and how it relates to adult learning. And I think that's an awesome thing to really get into. The other big piece of this module is going to be looking at teacher efficacy. And when we look at this idea of collective teacher efficacy, there's some really big things that we need to understand there because it has a huge effect size on the student achievement and just the overall well-being of a school staff. So we're going to see how that relates. So again, as I've always said here, we are aligned really nicely with these Ohio Teacher Leader Endorsement Standards. So you can see how everything kind of sits in the mix there, and we're good to go. So as far as the reading, there's a couple things we're going to be looking at here. We've got our textbook reading here. We've changed over to a different text here using quality feedback to guide professional learning. And again, pages 5 through 88. Again, I tried to choose some texts here for you that I thought were a good read, something that would kind of keep you engaged. I know it's hard when you get a textbook that's really wordy or maybe you can't really see how it applies. So I'm trying to choose some things that are really good here that you can kind of pull from. So a couple articles here for you. This first one is on teacher leadership and collective efficacy. There's also a website, which I'm going to show you here in just a minute, that I have in the top tab. And then also looking at this emotional intelligence and teacher efficacy as well. So we're going to look at that. So I want to show you a couple things first, talking about this idea of collective efficacy here. So I pulled just a website here for you. I don't have this one posted, but if you'd like to check it out, you can. Just wanted to show you, if you aren't aware of what collective teacher efficacy is, it says here a team of individuals sharing the belief that through their unified efforts they can overcome challenges and produce intended results. And when you see here, this has an effect size of 1.57. Now, when you think about this, some of you have seen John Hattie's work, and I'm going to show you a couple things here if you haven't seen his work. But he's did some meta-analyses and was looking at what is really the effect of certain things, instructional strategies, or certain things, even as much as like how much sleep a student gets, or maybe a classroom size or something like that, and how that influences the achievement scores of students. So if you look at collective teacher efficacy, so this belief that teachers can work together and they can overcome challenges and really be successful in what they do, this is pretty important because what we start seeing is that it is the number one factor in his research that influences student achievement. So the idea that teachers can work together and be really good at what they do, think about some of your best teacher-based teams or even a PLC that is really cohesive and is just rocking it. I know at our own school, we had a social studies team that was together in 10th grade for years and years and years. And when we first started, we were kind of just figuring each other out and we didn't know kind of how to work together. And then over the years, we just worked together and got to the point where we felt like we were unstoppable and we were getting a really good achievement scores and we were really rocking it. But it took years to get there. But I can definitely see how this collective teacher efficacy, that belief that we can do it, we can work together and make things happen, it really helped our social studies department. So if you click this link here, and again, you can see the links here if you'd like to visit them, and you just do a quick Google search, you'll find this. This is really cool stuff. So if you scroll down here, you're going to see these effect size ratings here, and you can see that number one here is collective teacher efficacy at a 1.57. And you can see as you scroll down here, there's a whole bunch of different ones here that have a very solid effect size. I mean, anything up in here is very strong. This idea of, response intervention. We've got some pieces here on just general self-efficacy, teacher credibility, micro-teaching, classroom discussions, scaffolding. And then you can see as you scroll down here, these things still have an impact. They're still in blue and still positive. So giving feedback, the problem solving, teaching. But then you start seeing as you scroll down here, there's certain things that don't have, at least in his meta-analyses, uh, a huge effect size. Summer school. That was kind of funny. You've got here technology in small groups. I think I found something in here on like one-to-one laptops. Okay. Kind of interesting. I know we got that big one-to-one push in most school districts. And then you can start seeing in red the summer vacation effect, right? Lack of sleep. You've got television, students feeling disliked, some of that, kind of social emotional kind of thing here, depression, boredom, deafness, ADHD. It's kind of interesting to see the different effect sizes. So I don't know if you've ever seen this before, but there's a lot out there on this. And if you look up John Hattie, that's going to be his work. Which is, I think, pretty cool. But again, thinking about what we're talking about here, this collective teacher efficacy right there at the top of the list. So one of the articles that I have here for you here, Teacher Leadership and Collective Efficacy. It's a short one, just a few pages here, is going to really dig into how teacher leadership and collective efficacy are kind of linked together. So this is going to be a nice article for you to look at for sure. So pretty cool stuff. Now, this center link here you're going to be using for the discussion question down here. I have you reviewing the following link and describing the importance of facilitating adult social emotional learning in a school-based setting. So if you click this link here, you're going to get to this website. And this isn't the only website on social emotional learning for adults, but I thought it was a nice overview, and you can kind of play around with things just a little bit. So if you click on how it works, if you're like me, I'm a huge visual learner, so you could click on a video here. It's a YouTube video on kind of an overview of what everything is. But what I really like is if you go up to the top here, so if we go back to the main page and you kind of just hover over this school-wide SEL process, they have different focus areas. So kind of from start, building awareness, commitment, and ownership, creating a plan, strengthening adult social emotional learning, promoting SEL for students. And I really wanted you to focus when you're looking at this kind of on these ideas here. Obviously, the student side of things is incredibly important, but the course that we're in here right now is talking really about this idea of strengthening adult learning and understanding how adults learn and how they respond to learning. This is pretty cool. And I think if you haven't thought about this before, this idea of basically trying to help staff in this department, I think this is incredibly, incredibly powerful. I'm thinking about some of these things here, having staff shared agreements, PLCs, peer mentoring, staff meetings, all those other kind of things, and having protocols. And I can tell you that going to some of the professional development sessions that I have, there are definitely people that when they are aware of these types of things, I think they run a much better PD session because they're aware of processing time. They're aware of having shared agreements. I know it sounds silly, but when you have a staff meeting or a small group meeting, having norms for your group and a shared agreement and collective norms, maybe making those together, that is a fantastic, fantastic practice. And so this is going to be really digging into that topic. Now, you can go as far down the rabbit hole into this website as you would like, but for the purpose of what we're looking at here, I just want you to understand a little bit more about how that fits into the adult learning and what we're doing in this course. Okay. All right, so as you scroll down to what you're going to be watching in this particular module, we have some information on instructional leadership teams. This is a good one. A really great video here on the revolution of self-directed learning. This is a TED Talk. It's actually a short one. It's less than 10 minutes on self-directed learning and how we can push people to really direct their own learning and what it is that they need to be able to improve. And I think a lot of times in education, the professional development is really prescribed for us that here's what we need to learn this year. Here's what we're going to be doing this year. When in reality, I think ultimately, just like with our students, we want students to be able to direct their own learning in some ways, right? And I think as adults, we want to be doing that. We want to be doing that too. I know when I want to know something, even in my own personal life, it's very self-directed. I get on Google, I watch YouTube videos on how to figure it out. I set up a plan on how I'm going to kind of improve. And I think that's really where we want to make sure that people are. So that's going to be a good one for you. And then also flexible classroom spaces, making space for personalized learning. Now, this is really more about students. And those of you that are familiar with blended learning, this is going to be very kind of normal for you. When you look at this, you're like, okay, well, that's kind of a blended learning environment where you got a lot of different things going on, or differentiated instruction. If you're familiar with that, there's going to be a lot of that going on in this video. But what if we could have a PD session or sessions with this style of kind of setup, this learning style where you've got people doing different things and the teacher's facilitating, maybe giving little micro lectures as needed, and students are able to do things kind of at their own leisure. And it's pretty cool to think about. And I in my earlier video, I shared a blended learning PD that I most recently attended by Marcia Kish. And Marcia had us definitely in this flexible kind of environment where, we had different rooms to go to. We had examples that we could do some things that were hands-on. We could do a micro lecture. We could do some independent practice, and it was all going on at the same time. And this was with 100 people, and I mean, it was great to see her really managing that many people in that time. And so, kind of a cool thing to be thinking about. All right, the discussion question is here, as I mentioned before, looking at the importance of facilitating adult social emotional learning. And the link is here, which is the same one that is up here. And then at the very end here, your reflection question, I'm going to have you dig into that revolution of self-directed learning and describe some ideas that educators can use from the business world, because this guy's coming more from the business world in the video, to really professionally develop staff members and improve teacher efficacy. So a lot here and a lot to get you thinking about, what you do in your daily practice and when you're working with adults. So I hope that you enjoy all that you're learning so far, and I think this has been a great course to really dig into these ideas and understand a little bit more about teaching adults. I know, again, I've said it time and time again, I wish I would have known all of this information so much earlier in my career. And I'm so thankful that during my doctoral classes, probably about 4.5 years ago, that we started really opening up the hood when it comes to adult learning. And I remember the first class we started talking about it, and it was like the light bulb went on. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to figure this out. I need to know this stuff. And some of the stuff I was already doing just naturally. I think we all, when we get into a group, we're looking for harmony. We're looking for people to get along. We want to be, friendly with people and understand other people's situations and be empathetic. But I think understanding, protocols and understanding shared agreements and understanding this idea of generational learning and how different people learn depending on what generation, they're from. I really wish I would have known this so much earlier. So I'm so glad that we're going through this together. Okay. All right. So have a great, great week. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to help you in any way. And have a great week of learning. All right. Take care, everyone.